In every business, we have a peculiar structure. It's a core part of what capitalism means. Most of the business in this society is done by corporations. It's the overwhelmingly most important institution of business, of enterprise. And here's how most corporations work. The majority of people come to work every day, Monday through Friday, more or less, spend the day working there. And they do what they're told. They go where they're supposed to go, they work with whatever machines they're given, on whatever raw material is provided, and they produce an output. And at the end of the day, they go home in order to rest and recuperate so they can do that all again the next day. Do they participate in deciding what happens at the workplace? Answer, no. They are excluded from that participation. Here are the key decisions every enterprise makes: what to produce, how to produce, where to produce, and what to do with the profits that everybody's collaboration has produced. Who makes those decisions? Two tiny groups, major shareholders and the boards of directors that are selected by the major shareholders. Each of those groups usually has 10 to 20 people in it. The employees may number hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands. The mass of employees are excluded. They do not participate in the decisions what to produce, how to produce, where to produce, and what to do with the profits. And let's see how the people who have that power, how they've used it. Well, that's what I just spent 45 minutes telling you. We know how they used it. They moved production to other countries. They took the profits and gave most of it to themselves. No surprise there. Wow. So the economy we have is in key part the result of how we've structured our enterprises. If we don't like the results, why haven't we begun to debate the structure out of which those results come? What's the taboo here? What's so hard about this? Because you know, if you think about it, the answer suggests itself. You don't need me. The answer would be, well, what about a democratic organization of enterprises? There, I've said it. How terrible is it? Here's how it would work. All the people who come to work at a store, an office, a factory, would together decide what to produce, how to produce, where to produce, and what to do with the profits that they all contributed to produce. It would be a democratic decision. Come on, folks. Everybody in this room, I assume, would subscribe to the notion that democracy is the right way to go. That the principle that if you're affected by a decision, you have some right to participate in it is a good and worthwhile principle. It's certainly the argument we use to justify wars in other countries and all kinds of other things. And if democracy is a good principle, and I think it is, then why isn't it applied in the workplace? In fact, that's the first place it should have been applied, because that's where we spend most of our adult lives. 5 out of 7 days, 9 to 5, you figure it out. That's where you are most of your adult life. And so if democracy matters to you, that's where it ought to be. But I'm not here to make the argument for democracy. I'm here to make the argument that democracy could cure capitalism. And let me show you how that would work. Suppose a decision where production occurs is not made by a board of directors sitting in New York or Chicago or someplace else, St. Louis too, deciding where's the most profitable place. Close it in St. Louis, move it to Shanghai. Suppose a decision were made instead democratically by the 600 workers or the 8,000 workers or whatever it is in a factory or an office or a store. How quickly do you think they would vote democratically to destroy their own jobs and have production moved to Shanghai? Not so fast. Maybe not at all. Oh my goodness. The democratization of the enterprise could be a major reversal of the pattern of closing production here and moving it over there. Here's another example. Suppose a company faces a wonderful new technology, makes production much more productive, but it fouls the air or it pollutes the water. If a board of directors sitting miles away makes a decision, they might decide, well, it's very profitable, and for those workers that are not comfortable breathing the air, go get another job. But now suppose the workers themselves, democratically, confronted the choice. A new technology that makes more profits, they're certainly interested in that, but it would be destroying the breath or the water that they and their husbands and wives and children and neighbors, they would think long and hard about that. You want to do something about ecological destruction? Democratize the enterprise. It's a good big step in that direction. Here's another example. When the accountants come in and tell you how much profits you made, here's how it works today. The board of directors, 15 to 20 people, selected by the major shareholders, usually 15 to 20 people, they sit around and they decide what to do with the profits. They give a nice chunk to themselves. You've probably noticed that. And they give a nice chunk to politicians to keep the lid on the situation. They use a bunch of it to move production overseas. That's always expensive. Now suppose we democratize the enterprise. The workers themselves would decide what to do with the profits. After all, they helped to produce them. They're going to live with the results of what's done with them, so they participate. Do you think they would decide to give the overwhelming bulk of the profits to shareholders as dividends and to the top 6 executives as $40 million packages? It would never happen. If you want to do something about inequality, democratize the enterprise, because the minute we begin to spread the profits around rather than concentrate them in the hands of those who monopolize those decisions today, we will do something about inequality rather than exhaust ourselves talking about it. And what would it mean to the individual American worker to have their job redefined? You're not just a drone who comes to work doing what you're told, how you're told, when you're told. Noticing that you've poured your brains and muscles into producing something which, at the end of the day, you leave where you work. You go home. The product of your work stays there and belongs automatically to somebody else. And you have nothing to say about what is done with it, how it's used, or what's done with the profits that come from the whole exercise. Wow. What would you think about yourself if that weren't the case? If you were part of the decision making, if you helped design the jobs and not just perform them, if you had the directing role to play, if everybody's job description included not just a particular task you do, but participating democratically in deciding and running an enterprise, you'd feel much better about yourself. You'd discover skills and capabilities in you you didn't know you had. You know, it's the same logic as saying to a student who comes to college, don't take only courses in accounting. Sure, you might want to be an accountant, but you know, maybe there's a musician hidden in your soul. Take a course in music, take a course in psychology. Find out who you are and what you love. Bill, the same applies to where you work. How many of you have thought more than once on entering your workplace? Oh no, this again? How many of you would rather think about a more variegated job, like those who run enterprises as opposed to those who work within them? Americans feel, all the studies show, alienated, distanced, and disgruntled. I love the word disgruntled. And the reason I love it is it violates Hegel's notion of contradiction. You can only be disgruntled You cannot be gruntled. And this is very problematic for Hegel. But Americans are disgruntled and upset. And the reasons are good. They live in an economic system that has stopped working for them. It stopped quite a while ago, but it's beginning to sink in. That's why I'm speaking all over the place, because they know it. They don't know what to do quite about it, but they want to hear more about it, and that's the first step. They want to hear more about it, and I got a lot to say. I've spent a lifetime trying to figure this out, to understand what's going on. And I want to be able to say it and to say it out loud. We can do, here it comes, we can do better than capitalism, and we sure ought to dare to try. Otherwise, we're stuck with a system that has less and less use for us. That's why the debts of the students are rising. That's why the job security is disappearing. That's why your benefits are atrophying. That's why your defined benefit has become a defined contribution pension. That's why your benefits from Social Security are hanging in the balance. That's why. For the last half century, we've been afraid to criticize capitalism. It's a bizarre thing about us. We're a country that prides itself on being critical and making progress that way. So we criticize our school systems and our energy system and our medical insurance system. We criticize this and now we debate it. Pros and cons, let's see what's wrong, let's try to make it better, let's go to a different system, whatever. But when it comes to our economic system, When it comes to economics, we're all supposed to line up to be cheerleaders, boosters. Yeah, it's great. Republicans and Democrats outdo each other. It's all great. Our best thing since sliced bread. Wonderful. Stop. Capitalism is just one way of organizing production. Feudalism was another. Slavery was another. Ancient agrarian societies had still others. Communes do it in a different way. It's not the only way. It's not the best way. Like every system, it has its strengths and its weaknesses. It has periods when it grows and is kind of dynamic, and then periods where it slows down, and then periods when it dies.